The Sanctum Medical Station stood as a beacon of hope in a vast, cold expanse of space. Floating in the neutral zone between warring star systems, it was a sanctuary where the injured and the sick could find refuge, regardless of their allegiance. Designed as a state-of-the-art facility by the Galactic Union, Sanctum was a testament to the belief that compassion should transcend borders, species, and political divides. Equipped with cutting-edge medical technology, advanced AI-assisted diagnostics, and an elite team of doctors from across the universe, it was the last hope for those caught in the crossfire of interstellar conflicts. Among the many dedicated individuals serving at Sanctum, two figures stood out prominently. The first was Dr. Elias Varon, a former military doctor who had seen more than his share of war. Once a battlefield surgeon for the Galactic Union's elite forces, Elias had abandoned the life of war after witnessing the horrors inflicted on both soldiers and civilians alike. He sought redemption in healing rather than destruction, dedicating himself to preserving life instead of taking it. Despite the station's peaceful mission, he carried the scars of his past, both physical and emotional. His steady hands had once wielded a scalpel in the heat of battle, but now they worked to mend rather than maim. The second was Seraphin Cora, a warrior who had once been known as the Blade of Luthor. A formidable fighter in her prime, Seraphin had retired from the battlefield after losing her entire squad in a catastrophic mission. Haunted by their deaths, she had sworn to devote herself to saving lives instead. Though no longer a soldier, she maintained a warrior's discipline and strength, serving as both a security officer and a volunteer nurse at Sanctum. Many of the staff and patients viewed her as an angel of protection, one who had traded her sword for a healing touch but retained the unwavering resolve of a soldier. For years, the station had remained untouchable. Even the most ruthless warlords respected its neutrality, knowing that an attack on Sanctum would be an attack on the very essence of civilization itself. But peace, as history had often proven, was fragile. One fateful evening, the unthinkable happened. The station's long-range sensors detected a fleet of unknown ships emerging from hyperspace. At first, it seemed like a routine arrival, another transport bringing in wounded from the outer colonies. But within seconds, alarms blared through the corridors. The station's AI, Halos, sent an emergency broadcast to all personnel. Warning: unauthorized vessels approaching at high velocity. Shields compromised. Impact imminent. Before anyone could react, explosions rocked the outer hull. The medical bay was flooded with red emergency lights as the station's defenses were overwhelmed in mere moments. The enemy had struck with surgical precision, disabling critical systems before a proper response could be mounted. Through the viewport, Elias and Seraphin saw them, dark, angular ships bearing the insignia of NYX's Death Squad, a notorious faction of mercenaries known for their brutality. They were not an army, they were executioners. And their presence here could mean only one thing: massacre. Within minutes, armored figures breached the station's corridors, moving with lethal efficiency. They were not here to take hostages. They were here to send a message. As gunfire erupted and screams echoed through the halls, Elias clenched his fists. He had sworn never to take another life, but faced with the slaughter of the innocent, a cold certainty settled in his heart. Seraphin, standing beside him, drew a concealed weapon from her medical uniform. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned with a fire that had never truly died. "Looks like we're back in the fight, Doctor." The aftermath of the attack on Sanctum Medical Station was nothing short of catastrophic. The corridors, once filled with the hum of medical machinery and the quiet murmur of doctors saving lives, were now stained with blood and littered with bodies. Fires raged in breached sections of the station, flickering in the void of space, while emergency sirens wailed in a futile attempt to restore order. The sheer brutality of the assault had left no room for mercy. The number of confirmed dead had already reached 185, a grim tally that included doctors, nurses, patients, and even helpless children who had sought refuge aboard the station. Elias Varon stood in the ruins of the central medical bay, his hands trembling as he clenched a blood-stained data pad. His mind reeled at the senseless carnage before him. He had spent his life trying to save lives, yet now he found himself surrounded by devastation he could do nothing to reverse. He turned to Seraphin Cora, who was surveying the wreckage with a cold, calculating gaze. Unlike Elias, she had seen this kind of destruction before, and she knew what had to come next. This wasn't just an attack, she said, her voice laced with fury. It was a message. And if we don't respond, they'll keep doing this. Again and again. Elias let out a shaky breath. And what would you have us do? Become soldiers again? You know what that leads to. More death. More suffering. Seraphin turned to face him, her expression unreadable. And if we do nothing? Do you think that will stop them? This is war, Elias. Whether we want it or not. As news of the massacre spread across the galaxy, panic gripped countless star systems. The once sacred neutrality of Sanctum had been shattered, proving that no place was safe. The Galactic Union's Security Council convened in an emergency session, their holographic forms flickering in a massive chamber as they debated their next move. The division was clear. Some advocated for immediate military retaliation against NYX's death squad, while others feared that an escalation of hostilities would plunge the galaxy into full-scale war. We cannot let this atrocity go unanswered. Ambassador Relos of the Varkari Dominion slammed a fist onto the table. If we do not act, we invite further attacks. On the other side of the chamber, a more cautious voice spoke up. And if we retaliate recklessly, we risk pushing the galaxy into chaos. We must consider diplomacy. The argument raged on, but the final decision lay in the hands of one person, President Helena Rain of the Galactic Union. A veteran leader, known for her steel resolve and unshakable commitment to peace, she listened to the heated discussions with narrowed eyes. Then, she stood. We have spent decades striving for unity. For peace, she began, her voice carrying the weight of responsibility. But today, that peace was shattered. We did not seek war. But if war has come to us, we must be ready. I am activating Project Nemesis. A heavy silence fell upon the chamber. Project Nemesis was a name spoken only in whispers, a classified initiative designed to create the most elite fighting force the galaxy had ever seen. They were not soldiers bound by conventional warfare. They were something else. Something deadlier. Something built for vengeance. As the order was given, across the galaxy, encrypted transmissions were sent out. A select group of individuals, scattered across distant planets, received the same message: the time has come. Report to the designated coordinates. You are needed. And with that, the gears of war began to turn. They were known only as the Nemesis Guardians, a unit of 10 warriors forged in the crucible of war, their existence erased from all official records. Each of them had once been a legend, a nightmare whispered among enemies, and a ghost among allies. They had fought in wars that history chose to forget, enduring trials beyond human limits. And now, they had been called upon once more. Gabriel Kane, their leader, was the first to arrive at the classified coordinates. A towering figure with piercing eyes that seemed to see straight through a person's soul, he carried himself with the weight of countless battles. Justice was his sole obsession, and he pursued it with a relentlessness that bordered on madness. One by one, the others arrived. Each of them was a force of destruction in their own right: assassins, tacticians, saboteurs, and frontline warriors, all trained to operate in the shadows. They were more than soldiers, they were executioners wielded by the Galactic Union's unseen hand. As they gathered in the war room aboard the Union's flagship, Gabriel surveyed the faces of his comrades. Some he had fought beside before, others were ghosts from missions long past. They did not need words to understand why they had been called. A holographic display flickered to life, showing the brutalized remains of Sanctum Medical Station. The death toll flashed in red numbers, 185 lives lost. "This is what we're here to avenge," President Helena Rain's voice echoed through the chamber. "NYX's death squad believes they can slaughter the innocent without consequence. That ends now. Your mission is simple: hunt them down, destroy their stronghold, and ensure the galaxy never fears them again." Gabriel leaned forward, his jaw tightening. "We need intel." "Where are they?" A high-ranking intelligence officer stepped forward. "We've pinpointed their primary base of operations. It's hidden within a derelict belt, a graveyard of ruined warships in deep space. We believe they've taken hostages, but their main goal is to instill fear. We cannot allow them to succeed." Gabriel exchanged glances with his team. Each of them knew what had to be done. Phase 1. Identify the exact location of the enemy base within a derelict belt. Phase 2. Infiltrate their defenses, neutralizing their leaders. Phase 3. Send a message of their own, one written in fire and destruction. As the team moved to prepare for deployment, Gabriel felt the familiar cold weight of his armor settle around him. This was not just another mission. This was justice. This was vengeance. And when the Nemesis Guardians struck, there would be no mercy. The Nemesis Guardians moved through the void of space like silent predators, their transport vessel cutting through the darkness towards HFY 9, the dead world where NYX's death squad had made their lair. The planet was a wasteland, its surface marred by ancient battles and inhospitable conditions. Toxic storms raged in the upper atmosphere, concealing the base beneath layers of electromagnetic interference. This was a world where only the damned survived. As their ship breached the atmosphere, turbulence rocked the hull, but the Guardians remained unfazed. They had been through worse. Gabriel Kane stood at the helm, his voice steady as he issued orders. "Stealth approach. We land 2 clicks south of the base and move on foot. No unnecessary noise. We take them before they know we're here." The dropship hovered just above the jagged terrain, and the team disembarked swiftly, vanishing into the shadows. Each member of Nemesis had a specific role, and now, their expertise would be tested against an enemy that thrived on chaos and bloodshed. NYX's death squad had no idea what was coming. Inside the enemy stronghold, the atmosphere was thick with the scent of oil, metal, and death. The corridors were lined with the remnants of past battles, discarded weapons, bloodstains that had never been cleaned, and bodies left to rot as warnings to intruders. But Nemesis was undeterred. They moved in perfect synchronization, each member covering their assigned sector as they approached the central command. The first enemy patrol barely had time to react. A silent blade across the throat, a silenced shot to the skull. One by one, they fell without a sound. The Guardians were living shadows, slipping through the compound like ghosts. Then, the alarm blared. They had been spotted. "Move!" Gabriel barked, his rifle raised as a hail of gunfire erupted around them. The corridors exploded into chaos, the dim lighting flickering as bullets ricocheted off metal walls. Enemies poured in from all sides, but Nemesis was prepared. They had trained for scenarios far worse than this. Seraphin Cora, the team's close combat specialist, lunged into action, her twin blades carving through enemy ranks with lethal precision. Ezekiel Rowe, the demolitions expert, lobbed a series of controlled explosives, turning choke points into fiery death traps. Every member of the team played their part, and despite the overwhelming odds, they pushed forward. The main control room was within reach. Gabriel signaled for breach formation, and within seconds, the reinforced door was blown open. Inside, 6 captives were chained to the walls, their bodies battered and broken but still alive. Relief was brief, however, as the room's far end opened to reveal a line of heavily armored mercenaries, weapons aimed directly at them. A trap. The enemy had anticipated their arrival. Before anyone could react, the lights cut out completely, plunging the room into absolute darkness. Then came the voice, distorted through the speakers. "You came for vengeance, Nemesis. Then die with the rest." And the slaughter began. Gunfire and screams filled the air as the room became a death chamber. The mercenaries opened fire with relentless precision, forcing the Guardians into cover. The captives were caught in the crossfire, their cries drowned out by the chaos. Gabriel gritted his teeth, his mind racing. They had walked straight into the jaws of the beast. "Fall back. Defensive positions," he ordered, firing into the darkness. But there was no retreat. The doors had sealed behind them. This was it. Nemesis had come to bring death to the enemy. Instead, death had come for them. Gabriel Kane stood amidst the ruins of the enemy stronghold, his breathing heavy, his pulse a steady drum beat in his ears. Smoke curled from the wreckage, the remnants of Nemesis' assault painting a grim picture of victory. The battle had raged for hours, but now, only silence remained. Silence, and the final confrontation. Vex Mallocker, the warlord of NYX's death squad, emerged from the shadows, his towering frame exuding menace. His crimson armor was scorched, dented, but the hatred in his eyes burned brighter than ever. The air between them crackled with unspoken fury. There would be no negotiations, no surrender. Only one of them would leave this battlefield alive. They circled each other, warriors of an era long past, both tempered by war and hardened by loss. Gabriel knew Mallocker's reputation. He had slaughtered entire colonies, razed planets to the ground. This was not a man, he was a force of destruction, and it was Nemesis' duty to end him. Mallocker struck first, lunging forward with blinding speed. Gabriel barely had time to parry, their blades clashing in a shower of sparks. The force of the impact sent tremors through his arms, but he held firm. Mallocker pressed the attack, his strikes relentless, each one meant to kill. Gabriel countered, weaving through the flurry of blows, his movements precise and controlled. He had trained for this moment, had envisioned it countless times. This was not just a fight, it was justice. For the 185 innocent lives lost on Sanctum. For the countless others who had suffered under Mallocker's reign of terror. Their battle raged through the ruins, the echoes of their struggle reverberating across the battlefield. Nemesis had cleared the compound, securing the remaining hostages, but none dared interfere in this final duel. This was personal. Mallocker roared, swinging his blade in a vicious arc. Gabriel dodged, driving his own weapon deep into the warlord's side. Mallocker staggered, blood spilling onto the scorched earth. But he was not finished. With a desperate, rage-fueled cry, he lunged once more, aiming for Gabriel's heart. Time slowed. Gabriel sidestepped, twisting his blade, and in one decisive motion, he drove it through Mallocker's chest. The warlord choked, his body trembling as the life drained from his eyes. Gabriel held firm, his grip unwavering, until the last breath escaped Mallocker's lips. Then, he stepped back, letting the body fall to the ground with a final, resounding thud. The war was over. In the aftermath of the battle, the galaxy trembled. News of Nemesis' victory spread like wildfire. The sheer efficiency, the unrelenting force with which they had struck, sent waves of fear rippling through enemy ranks. Governments hesitated, warlords reconsidered their alliances, and for the first time in decades, the chaos that had threatened to consume the galaxy paused. But with victory came consequences. The Galactic Union, though grateful, was unsettled. Nemesis had operated outside the boundaries of diplomacy, their actions swift and merciless. While the Death Squad had been eradicated, the message was clear: no one was beyond Nemesis' reach. Even the most hardened criminals now feared the shadows, knowing that retribution could come without warning. Helena Rain, the president of the Galactic Union, addressed the council in a closed session. "We have rid the galaxy of a great evil," she said, her voice steady. "But we must ask ourselves, what have we unleashed?" Nemesis did not answer to governments, to laws, to treaties. They answered only to justice. And that made them as powerful as they were dangerous. On the outskirts of the known galaxy, Nemesis vanished into the void, their mission complete. Gabriel Kane stood aboard their vessel, staring into the abyss of space. He knew their work was not done. Evil did not die so easily. There would always be another Mallocker, another force seeking to spread destruction. And when that time came, Nemesis would return. A final message was left behind, broadcast across the stars, a warning to any who dared threaten peace. If you touch the innocent, if you sow chaos and destruction, we will find you. There will be no mercy. And with that, the legend of Nemesis faded into myth. But the fear of their return remained, a silent guardian in the darkness. For some, they were saviors. For others, they were nightmares. For all, they were justice.